God almighty. It's the Sweat Equity Podcast. That's my lead-in. You like that?
Who's Johnny?
Johnny? Did I say Johnny? Am I? No. Hottie Toddy.
Hottie Toddy.
Yeah, it's an old, I think it's an Ole Miss uses it as their kind of phrase of celebration. My frat used to say it.
I think you got the wrong podcast. I think you're looking for a college football podcast.
No, you know what? You can say Hottie Toddy no matter what. I just needed a thing to kind of walk into an episode, and clearly this lead-in was not a good idea. That other voice you hear, I'm Law Smith. That other voice you're hearing is Trey Steinhoff. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah,
okay. Not
German.
Johnny. We're going to do this on my personal Facebook Live, so that'll be interesting to see who's going to shit talk while we're doing this.
And we're getting personal on this podcast.
And we're really close. This is the closest I've been to a guest. So where do we start?
He's talking about emotionally.
Well, emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah, if you roll that way.
You know, romantically.
Well, don't tell your wife. I saw you at CVS that one time. So.
I have man love for you, but not man love for you. How about that? Does that make sense?
You always have to clarify in Ybor. Yeah.
We are in Ybor City, right before Gasparilla, which is our basically Tampa's Mardi Gras. That's pirate themed of sorts. So I don't know how to explain it. We have a lot of people that listen outside of the area, so it's kind of hard sometimes to go like, hey, you know what this is? You know what it's about? Yeah. You know what Ybor City's about? So I try to weave some of that in there. Now, we had you on Sweat Equity, I don't know, what was it, 2 months ago?
Something like that, yeah, early November.
And you had the startup weekend in Tampa. So if anybody's listening to the audio, they can pause it, go to that episode, listen to that. Kind of get a rundown of what that was. You can give me a short kind of synopsis of what it was.
Startup Weekend. It happens all over the world. I run the one here in Tampa, and essentially you have 54 hours to work with a bunch of strangers to build a company from the ground up. And then on a Sunday night, you pitch it to a bunch of investors, CEOs, big wigs in Tampa, and you get a bunch of prizes, co-working spaces, professional services, stuff like that.
So it's like a real high pressure weekend.
Oh yeah, you're sweating, you're getting arguments with people you just met, you're trying to build products, build business strategies.
So is it mostly like app software style?
Really depends.
Because I know a lot of these are like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, who can hack a whatever in 40 hours.
Right.
And I've seen that with like who can make a film in a weekend, and it's like that's gonna suck ass.
Right. There's that movie fest coming up on campuses. I can't remember what it's Campus Movie Fest, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
I really put that together there. But yeah. So kind of like that, just with the businesses, right? You've got some people that you're gonna meet, and you can potentially do tech. A lot of people tend to be drawn to tech. But this year, our third place finisher.
Well, you drank a lot of vodka before we started.
Yeah, you've got a big stasher there. But our third place finisher actually made a vest that is meant to be very cheap and disposable, that kind of incorporates the same chemical reactions you'd have in a hand warmer, and it's just for your torso. And they called it like Cozy Core. And the idea was whether you're selling to like military or you're selling to sports aficionados, like the Lightning game or like a Green Bay Packers game.
All right, let me pause you on how it's going to get used, because the way you just pitched it, I just imagine a guy that just loved touching himself and like closing his eyes and just, no more. I don't have to do this in public anymore. Yes.
I mean, you know, if your brain goes there, that's cool. I won't second guess that. You spend a lot of time in Ybor.
Yeah.
Once again.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the idea was you could produce it really cheap. You could sell it really cheap. You're going to a Green Bay Packers game at Lambeau Field in December or February. Once again, sorry, they just got knocked out, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sorry, Green Bay Packers fans, but you'd be able to show up, you know, and buy this vest for $15. That's going to be disposable and keep you very, very warm on your core, because obviously that's your priority. If your body has a warm core, it's going to be better suited to warm the rest of your extremities.
Seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
So here's my deal with this. All right, so you walk in, it's supposed to be a brand new idea, right?
Yep.
So
Well,
Like if
what
I'm
do you
doing
mean-
the movie one, I'm like,
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of sketch ideas that I've never really sat down and crushed out.
Right.
I've had movie ideas that I've never really, flushed out. I feel like you got some of these preloaded, right? You can't walk in and be like, okay, got it, 5 minutes, let's roll.
So there aren't a lot of hard rules with Startup Weekend. We're
Okay.
pretty lax about it, but really you can't have any prior investment, you can't have any prior customers, and you can't have any serious work done. So this year we had someone that had like a GitHub, but the GitHub was just filled with like templates that they pulled offline. It wasn't like they did a lot of hardcore coding beforehand.
Okay.
And this Cozy Core guy, they didn't really have anything but an idea. So as
For
long
those that
as-
don't know, GitHub is like a programmer's kind of go-to guide for what, like it's kind of open
it's like
source.
a repository, really.
Yeah, like people help each other out. Like, oh, here I worked this code over here. You guys can use it on whatever.
Exactly. You build your own account and you steal code from other people. You build your own code. It's kind of like your own little personal wiki page for all of your in progress work.
It's the nice part of the internet. Let's say that.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I don't know.
Especially for developers, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so somebody came in and there was a little bit of controversy there. Like, did they have too much work done? We decided they didn't because they could have done what they did in a weekend.
Okay.
Like, you can come into Startup Weekend with, a few days worth of effort, some market research, maybe a little bit of validation. But if you have any money behind you, like if you've already built the whole friggin' product, like we're not going to let you do it. You've got to at least have, a minimal amount of work done so you don't have an unfair advantage, because there's a lot of great stuff on the line. Like if you win Startup Weekend, you're getting months and months of co-working. You're getting legal counsel, marketing counsel, video packages, all kinds of stuff. So
Okay. Yeah, and so that's good. You have like basically a threshold for people who can't be like, oh, I already have this thing like pretty much ready for market.
Right.
Okay. But I feel like a product's a lot tougher because you have to. I mean, maybe not now if you do 3D printing on some stuff, but
yeah, it's a pretty slow process, 3D printing.
Is it?
I mean, it depends on if you have like an industrial grade 3D printer, but most of the stuff you can get around town, like the library, the John Germany Library here in Tampa, they have free 3D printing. If you have like a Hillsborough County residence card or driver's license or whatever it might be. But
yeah, give it up for the library trying to figure out something to do other than
How do we
house
get people
bums.
to come here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think about that. My wife did tell me like they have a 3D printer at the downtown Tampa library. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm glad they're doing something that is promoting something that like,
Yeah.
hey, they're not in that area where they're like, books are awesome forever. Like they see what's going on. So I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of cool. But
books are awesome forever, for the record.
I agree. Well, since the printing press, I guess. But what? So, all right. So, can you tell me any of the duds? Are you allowed to do that?
All right. So
Like
let's see.
American Idol second episode where they have the
Oh,
whack
boy.
jobs in there.
Yeah, I mean, so how it works is like you show up on a Friday and we had about 100 people participate, and
Uh-huh.
I'd say we had 60 pitches
Okay.
first night. So that's a minute long. So some people
60. All
some
right.
people get up there and they just like flop. They have an anxiety attack. They really didn't have an idea to begin with.
Oh my god. That
and
sounds awesome.
It's a really good time, to be honest with you,
Fuck.
because some people are brilliant. Some people just have these ideas they've been sitting on for a year but never really executed on.
Yeah.
And then some people just get up there and you're like, I just want to make an app to spread love to the community. And everybody's like, well, that's great. We're not going to vote for you, but that's really cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, the duds, not worth mentioning, but we ended up having 15 teams actually build products that are worth mentioning.
Okay.
And so top 3, let's see here. I think that first place, it was right after the election, so that was a sore spot.
Yeah.
And so first place was an application that would let you interact with your local politicians and your, I guess, regional politicians.
Mm-hmm.
And it would also source a lot of information, relevant news, based on what the issues that were important to you. Honestly, not the most original idea, but they did a great job in execution. They had a beautiful app in 3 days. They had an awesome business strategy and go-to-market strategy, so that did really well. Second place was called Re-D printing. So the idea was you source water bottles and other plastics from your local community.
Okay.
Right? Specifically like universities, because this would really work at a university
Okay.
stage, right? So you source all those water bottles. They make machines that not this company, but Law, could go out and buy a machine that would convert water bottles into plastic filament for 3D printers.
Oh.
And so they would like wholesale get some of those, and then they would create 3D filament, and then they would sell it back to the universities. They would also work on, they had like a whole bunch of different ways to make money, but they would sell this filament back to the universities. They would also like promote 3D printing around the community in general. They would sell 3D printers to different like companies, libraries, whatever.
It's another issue because it's not on a real consumer level yet. It's kind of like PCs where like, you know, it was this big monolithic thing, and then it'll get there, obviously. I mean, you can see that's going to happen. Like it'll be something like, if it 10 years, is it 20 years that like everybody will have one in their house.
Right.
When you need, like, instead of going to Home Depot, you can just get a baby screw, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that was the second one. Third place was the Cozy Core. And those guys literally brought in a sewing machine and, like, the materials that you need to make that chemical reaction happen to create this exothermic reaction, right? You're giving off heat by combining these two materials. And so they built it, and they had a great prototype, and that's why they got top 3, because at Startup Weekend, it's not all about, that's the best idea I've ever heard. It's more about, do you have a team that can execute? Because most investors, they're not buying ideas, they're buying teams, right? They want to see that you're competent, that you guys are driven, that you're going to make this work. And so those 3 teams were top 3 because they executed really, really well. But there were a ton of great ideas.
So if anybody goes to one of these, that's kind of the map. Like, I watch Shark Tank, and I'm always baffled that everybody on there doesn't watch every episode ever. You know, like, it's like, okay, they're going to ask you about 5 things for sure.
Yeah.
They're going to ask you about valuation. They're going to ask you about sales. They're going to ask you about you, which is that part. And I consider that, can they hang out with you at 2 a.m.? The writer's room test. You know, like, if you're a spaz and you talk over everybody, or like you don't listen or any of that, or you just have delusions of grandeur, like, they don't want to do business with you even if you have a great idea.
Yep.
Because you're going to get in your own way, and they know that.
Yep.
What was the other 2?
And that is so important and often understated. And I've been like seeing it in my own life around, and it's weird because I consider myself someone that has a lot of soft skills, and I often beat myself up for that.
What's soft skills?
Just the kinds of things that you were talking about. The 2 a.m. test,
I'm thinking
right?
massages. So.
I have a lot of massage skills. No, but, you know, being able to communicate effectively, work with people, do critical thinking, and have patience enough to work through problems with individuals in a group setting. Yeah. Leadership, you know, really all of that kind of stuff I consider soft skills. And I have some hard skills like design, and I'm going to start building more websites and stuff like that. But I didn't really value that until I started to see a lot of people that struggled in those areas, and how that really affects how they interact with people in like a business setting when you're trying to be productive.
Oh boy, I could go on for 4 hours about this, but yeah, it's knowing what you don't know.
Right.
That's a big one. A lot of people don't get. I still, you know, my problems is knowing what you can handle in like a capacity issue. I'm pretty good about going, I don't know about that. Right. But I'm pretty good at sourcing people who do.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about, intellectual honesty.
Well, that's what this company's kind of set up on, is like, okay, we don't want to hire anybody full time until we have to, but because everything online is like, I've seen firms collapse because they hire too many people that don't have enough hard skills, as you call it. And,
right.
You know, you know this, if you hire a programmer, they might just do one type of programming or two different types. Like,
right.
And really there's 5 or 6, 7 big styles of programming, like SQL.
Right.
Some people can do SQL. Some people can do Java.
If not more, yeah.
Some people can do just HTML, you know, so there's that kind of part of it. And right there you have to hire a bunch of that. Mm-hmm. And then I go over to design. Design's another animal because a lot of designers can't do other styles.
Some people do logos, some people do print, some people do web, some people do video, website, whatever it is.
But then that other part where I kind of explained to a lot of clients, I'm like, well, I know enough about programming. I would never call myself a programmer, but I know enough to be able to talk to one.
Right.
And I know enough about design to be able to talk to designers. And I know how creatives act too.
Right.
Because the personality-wise, they're going to be flaky. So you have to stay on top of them a little bit more.
Yeah, I learned that too.
The programmers, you got to extract information out of them a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and how they're coachable because it's like an if this then that kind of logic all the time. But it's a different kind of managing, project managing. So
absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's a huge part of what anybody that's successful, they're pretty good at that for themselves, and they don't want to hang out with anybody that and get really in depth with anybody on a project that like
or invest.
Where
absolutely.
People are just delusional and just don't know.
Yeah, you're right. So take that as a note, people watching. Soft skills, pretty fucking important.
Yeah.
But I think for Startup Weekend, a lot of people succeed for that reason. Because in reality, you're not going to build like an entire like application from scratch in a weekend.
Yeah.
But what you are going to do is work through like your business model. You're going to work on frameworks, wireframes, customer feedback, figuring all of that out. That's all communication ability. You've got to be able to work with these strangers. One idea that worked for that reason, also because it was a great idea that I think you might be interested in, and lines up with the name of this podcast.
Hit me.
Was called Split EQ.
Okay.
Big fan of this idea, and I think it could have been top 3.
Split EQ?
Yeah, split equity, right?
Ah.
So the idea was this. They were going to like implement a bunch of different ways to essentially track how much time and effort and money each person has put into the startup.
Okay.
And then divvy up the equity accordingly.
Okay.
And so that's a challenge, right? Because you could be working at 2 a.m. to do XYZ thing. Yeah. And somebody else could be, hitting the golf course with a big client. And that's also, they're putting in equity, but it might be a little bit different. How do you weight that, right? How do you differentiate between code built and a sale made or a connection made? How do you split that up?
Yeah, it's tough because, all right, so you'd have to figure out do you split up your cost rate versus your bill rate kind of stuff at, what's the spread on that? And
that's
then
right.
do you weigh every task for this startup evenly?
Exactly.
So it's easy to do like a flat, like let's say it's $100 an hour of work done in this kind of scenario. But business development, it depends your strategy in each too.
Right.
So like with business development and sales, it's like, are you doing a portfolio of getting home runs? Or are you trying to do singles and doubles? I try to do a mix of all of that, really, because it's kind of that's the best way to kind of go about it for us.
Right. You strike out on home runs all day, you're going to go out of business.
Yeah. I mean, and you want to get on base.
Right.
That's your percentage. Is like, and more work will get more work, but it's that thing of it's different in a startup scenario, and I think that's more of I'd say that's more of like a project manager's kind of position is you're trying to find the best person at this price. It's interesting. I'd like to see the math on it. The hard part is the time tracking.
It requires a lot of honesty. It requires like a lot of trust between the different people. What they did is like before anything got started, everybody had to agree on what their hours were going to be billed as. Like how much is 1 hour of my time versus 1 hour of lost time worth?
So that's hard right there because we're working on this internally too because I think pricing for service businesses, we apply this for service businesses.
Right.
But it's applicable for this. The hardest thing is to figure out what your price is. And a lot of people go, well, my hourly rate is, I looked around at 3 other people or 2 other people, I'll be in the middle or whatever. Just kind of arbitrarily a little bit. Why they don't even think about why. You'll be surprised. I talked to a lot of businesses that literally just I don't know, just sounded good. And you're like, okay, but did you budget out like what that looks like?
Right.
What's non-billable and how many hours a week? If you really do the math, it is really difficult. We arrived at 186.50. We know we can do the work of the bigger guys in our area, but at the same time, we don't have the legacy of some of these other big offices. So, we're going to be auditioning a lot. So we'll be under per hour with a lot of people for the first couple of years.
Right.
So that's in consideration too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Tampa in itself is a little bit lower than, let's say, Austin, Denver, LA, San Francisco, whatever. So I think that's interesting. That I'm not trying to shit all over this. I think the 2 biggest hurdles are like pricing's the hardest thing in business.
Right.
And then, so I considered trying to figure out your hourly rate.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on Upwork and maybe figure that out for some of those hard skills that are just
Right.
bang, bang, bang. And then the other part is just human behavior, like the discipline to change a lot of people to time track.
Yep.
We use Harvest. It's really tough. It took me a while to really drill it in my head.
Right.
I try to do it 3 times a day because I'm so bad at it.
Really?
Yeah, well, I was, but now I go, well, you know, we have to commoditize time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, and I have to justify it. I spent this amount of time, you know, and it goes to our clients on retainer, and this is where we are in projects. This is what I projected. This is where we are. So
Okay.
instead of you make time basically a product instead as a service business.
Right.
That's how I kind of see it, but I don't know.
That makes sense.
I didn't read any books. I just kind of think about this obsessively.
Yeah, understood. Because it's, you know, your reputation with the client on the line, not just, you know, does my co-founder think that my time is worth a lot of money? You're actually billing people for this. So
Yeah, and I have a sample size now that I can really justify a lot of the stuff. And
Right.
we're finding out, well, social media management and marketing takes a lot more time than people realize.
Right.
But if you have a lot of collateral for us, you know, you have some photography and video and stuff, it doesn't take as much time. So
Sure.
we're trying to figure out that the creative part and design part is a little tough because it's hard to quantify.
Yeah, all over the board.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Anyway, so I want to hear more about it though. So
Cool. So let's see here. We had that idea that was pretty solid. We had what other ideas did I really like? We had some people that wanted to use like EEG headsets that you would use to like control a game on your phone with your mind. It's pretty clever. I think it's been done before though. They didn't end up winning, but I liked it a lot. Let's see. We had, oh man, this was a good one. And I think the only reason that they didn't outright win was because of the subject matter, but
Fleshlight.
no, close.
I mean, what?
Digitizing spending money at the strip club. Yeah, not kidding.
Hey, Tampa Strip Club City.
That's right. It was-
Innovation
they
within
executed-
the industry.
Dude, it was great. Like, just incredible idea, great execution, great team. They had just a killer pitch.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason that they didn't win was just because the judges weren't interested in promoting strip clubs. And so
It may happen one day, but I'll tell you,
Sorry, man.
the other part of that is people don't want to trail. They want cash. They want to do cash.
that was the biggest feedback that they got.
See, this is why you need me as a judge to bring like the scumbag like angle. I'll
Yeah.
think as my gross.
Oh, they
funny
asked
student.
that. You know,
Yeah.
Alex Sink asked that. So
Oh,
don't
really?
worry. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So,
what was her role in government? I can't.
She was the chief financial officer of Florida, so
So
she had to track down a lot of this under the
Okay.
table spending.
That's good.
No, but essentially what they figured out they were going to do is they would only have the application or the mobile website load on your phone once you connected to the Wi-Fi at each individual strip club. So it would see that you've arrived into the Wi-Fi. It would open up this thing on your phone automatically. Ahead of time, you would decide how much money do I want to spend at the strip club tonight. You would allot yourself $200, and then they would have profiles for all the dancers where you could pick and choose what you want and give them, you know, the money that you think they were worth or whatever. And so all of this is being tracked only when you're in the strip club, and when you leave, there was no trace that you were ever there. It just is. It's all about like the local network that you were on for the individual strip clubs.
So it creates like a geo fence almost.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember much of the details. It was a couple months ago, and it was a quick pitch, but that was the concept because they understood that if this was going to work, privacy had to be top priority.
Yeah, you'd have to do it through some kind of cryptocurrency thing.
Yeah,
you
Bitcoin.
wouldn't want. Yeah, you wouldn't want it. You wouldn't want it tracked. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like, no one would know. Like, first off, you have to get the older like gross dudes to get on board with technology.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it won't happen one day. I'm
Yeah.
just saying like that's gonna be a hard pitch to like an old fisherman that's going in there like,
Yep.
hey man, all right, so you can only order through your smartphone. He's like, I don't have a phone. And you're
Yeah.
like, fuck. All right.
I scrapped together $50 today. I'm not gonna eat.
You
but
can
I'm-
borrow one of our iPads, and you're like, no thanks.
Yeah, I don't have a bank account. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was pretty cool. There was someone on their team that was like industry expert for whatever reason. I don't remember. I think she had like a management role at some strip club. And so she would talk about how for the dancers, this would make things so much easier because it would kind of assure they're not getting counterfeit bills. They wouldn't have to collect at the end of the night. They wouldn't have to do the exchange with the men.
That's the club that is like, we don't want to get ripped off on what we're supposed to get on the take on all this shit.
The dancers too. And there was another interesting kind of pain point that might have been taxable income.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember how they worked around that, but that was something they addressed too. But it was really, really interesting and great execution. At the end of it, like the closer for the pitch was like he took out his phone and he's like, and also we're gonna introduce a feature where you can make it rain. And he just starts like flinging his finger across the screen. That's funny. Oh, dude, it was great.
Funny.
It was awesome.
But so some of these ideas, just because it's for strip clubs, doesn't mean that can't be applicable to something else.
Anything else, yeah.
So like my head's going to like a resort, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get, because resorts are so big, I'm talking like the big ones in like Mexico that's walled off from the Society of Mexico, really, but like, but it's on the beach, it's huge, and you want to get a drink or you want to get something, you could do it that way.
Yeah, that'd be smart. Save all your money ahead of time. Don't go blowing all your money when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's a concierge service essentially, right? So all you're doing is ordering something that's within these walls. You could apply it to something like that, or some kind of restaurant or something that has too many options. Let's say Cheesecake Factory.
I think I have a Cheesecake Factory gift card on my wall right now.
Humble brag.
Yeah. I don't need your applications.
All right. So the next, you got any others?
I think those were some of the highlights. It was a great time. It was one of the best events we've ever had. But
I'm sad I didn't get to go, man. I wanted to.
Come out in February to our sister event.
So that'll dovetail right into this. February what?
I think it's 12th through 17th. That sounds right.
Okay. 12th through 17th. Where is it?
We're going to have it in a few locations. So Monday through Wednesday, we're going to have it in Tampa Heights off Franklin Street, so you know where the Rialto Theater is.
Okay.
Rialto Theater, Hip Room, Foundation Coffee, Hidden Springs Brewery. It's like we're taking over it all, right?
Okay.
And so we're going to have a bunch of events in all of those different spaces all day long, Monday through Wednesday, all free to the public. So the first class that I'm running is with Sarah Veseloff, who's a fantastic designer and developer. Mm-hmm. And so she's doing a class on how to do React development free.
Okay.
Like 2 hours of detail on how to be a React developer and like the pros and cons and the ins and outs.
What is that?
React is just a style of coding, right? Essentially just a language. And so that's like one example of 70 events. So there's going to be development tracks, design-related tracks, accounting-related tracks, PR and marketing and branding. There's going to be craft beer tracks, just general networking, pitch
By track, you mean like class or session or something?
I should take a step back here. So think about track as a category.
Okay.
And within each category, there are events within it. So for design, which is what I'm running.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm running design, so I'm going to do designing in React. I'm going to do designing websites that convert. I'm going to do a talk on where UI and UX meet. I'm going to do a speed like mentoring session where people come in and consult designers and branding experts. If you want to be on that panel.
Look, man, I was going to say, whatever you want me to come on and talk about, I feel like I've got that 50 feet wide, 4 foot deep kind of thing. Yeah. So anything you need someone to come in, I can kind of do that. Cool. I just want to see it too anyway.
Absolutely.
You know, I think I like this kind of innovation stuff in the area. And obviously you've been to the Fuck Up Nights thing we do. And, you know, I'm sure it's pretty thankless that you're doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I get it. But Tampa needs more of this kind of stuff. So I'm definitely down in just that zone. But yeah, whatever you need out of us, I'll try to figure it out.
Absolutely, man. Yeah,
it's during
a
the
great
day.
Time. Yeah, so
okay,
it's all the time, right? So it starts at like 9 a.m. It'll probably end at like 11 p.m. each night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be fun.
But yeah, we're doing it in Tampa Heights for Monday through Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday we're going over to St. Pete, and we're going to host at Station House, which is this kick-ass space, like 3 or 4 stories. Iron Yard's out of there, which is a code school.
I've called them up. They didn't call me back.
Oh.
No, I wanted to have funnel some of their programmers and developers.
Oh shit.
And I was like,
They're always looking to place people. Maybe you didn't offer competitive enough, right?
no, I wanted to kind of talk to them and see how we could figure out some kind of partnership, because I try to make these way in advance, this kind of stuff.
Right.
So like, hey, maybe you need projects for developers, real life ones.
Honestly, they would be totally willing to work with you. They've got a graduating class come up.
Yeah.
I'll introduce you to Tony.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like butthurt about it. I get it. They're busy too. So
absolutely.
and I didn't really pursue like aggressively, but I was
Right.
like, this would be a cool. I wanted to find how to find people like that out of school, and how to find designers. How to find. It's really hard to find kind of people that know online advertising, that are young. But we've definitely thought about our growth this year and kind of all that. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Station House, which is like a co-share working place.
Yep.
Kind of like WeWork.
Tampa Bay Wave, kind of similar to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we got people outside of the area. So,
it's a co-working space. So the Wave, which is in Tampa, is co-working and an accelerator, so a little bit more hands-on. And I believe Station House is more of just like general co-working, so places where you can go and pay to have your office, your own business address. There's all kinds of cool things that happen there. It comes with a lot of benefits. Just a great place to work. And I think the real value in co-working spaces is just proximity to other people that are doing things that are worth a shit.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I know every time we hang out, it's like, we both get kind of a little amped up because there's stuff going on. If you're kind of isolated and you're working out of a Starbucks and shit on something, you can kind of be cast away kind of crazy on your own. And people do get energy by, hanging around other entrepreneurial people.
Right.
And so like I tell a lot of freelancers that we hire frequently, I'm like, here's a key, come in the office, use it. I like people coming in here and kind of working on stuff, even if it's not something for us.
Right.
And so I totally get that like environment part, because I mean, it too, like entrepreneurship is very isolating.
Yeah.
And you have to have this weird ego. You need enough ego to go, this is a great idea. I'm going to put a lot of my life into it.
Right.
But enough to pull that back so you're not crazy. So like you're always kind of teetering this mental kind of balancing act.
Right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, man. Really stressful, emotional, takes up a lot of your time.
Yeah. So St. Pete, Thursday and Friday of Startup Week. That's the 16th, 17th in St. Pete.
That sounds right.
Of February. And then what goes on? So the tracks carry through the days.
That's right. So online, it's tampabay.startupweek.co is where you can go and see the full schedule of events. And I think we're
just Google it.
Yep, we're going to be Tampa Bay Startup Week.
Yeah.
We're going to be adding more events, but right now I think we got like 60 to 70 in there. All those different categories, which we call tracks.
Yeah.
And each event is generally like an hour to 2 hours at the most. They're scheduled based around, when people who are throwing the events can actually be there, because it's all volunteer for the most part. And so, every night we're going to have like big marquee events. So events that we expect to get a big turnout for, that are going to be pretty interesting, like things that are generally like great for the community. So what we're calling this is like Uncovering the Future is like our theme for this year. And so we're going to have like a big panel of, Tampa big shots to kind of talk about the vision for the future for Tampa Bay. We're going to do, some other events. I think we're going to do like a pitch event. I think each track, some of the tracks will have their big marquee event at like 6 p.m.
Yeah, that
and
makes
so
sense.
Even if you're working, if you manage to come out from like 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. one day, you'll catch 3 different talks. And you could get 3 talks that are really useful. You might learn how to launch a website for an hour. Then you might learn how to be a social media marketer for an hour. And after that, you might have an opportunity to like drink at a happy hour and network with some big shots and get some business, or learn a little bit more about whatever it is you're trying to learn. So, even if you can't come out every day, it's good. But if you can put aside some time during the day, there are going to be events that are happening from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you could take a lunch break and then go learn how to develop in PHP. It could be anything.
Yeah. So if I'm trying to think who would want to be on the tracks. So like, if I'm someone that's like, I need to do something different. I know I want to do this I want to do design. And you take that week and you go, it's kind of like a little bit of a crash course on a lot of stuff in that zone.
Yeah.
And then you become a designer at the end, right?
You could, your own effort. Has a lot to do with it.
Well, I mean, no, I think I talk to a lot of people that are like, I want to do something different, but I don't know what yet. And I think this is a good way to kind of put your toes in the water.
Absolutely. That is kind of the point. There's going to be some